Sooner we get started, the sooner we get to go home. Good evening. Welcome to the annual town meeting, May 2nd, 2024. Supposed to start at 7 o'clock. We've got great turnout. It is 7:11. Thank you all for coming out on a glorious Hadley evening. Thank you so much. We certainly appreciate it. And a quorum being present, I will call the meeting to order. The return of the warrant shows that it has been properly served. Registrars, do we have a count of voters back there? Registrars, do we have a count of the voters? 166. Haven't seen numbers like that since Lowe's. Thank you. Appreciate you guys coming out. All right. First thing I'd like you to do is ask to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our nation's flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I would like to also introduce the head tables up here. We have the Board of Selectmen. We have Amy Parsons, Chair, Randy Iser, Joyce Chungalo, and Jane Nevinsmith. Did I say it right this time? And Molly. Molly. How did I figure you? Molly Keegan. It's Keegan, right?
That's it.
It's Keegan. Okay, yes, Molly Keegan, yes. Thank you. All right, so we've got that. Town Administrator, Carolyn Brennan. We have our legal counsel from MTC. We have Lisa Mead and Matt Provencher. Town Clerk, Jessica Spanknabel. Finance Committee, we have David Phil, Chairman. Amy Fiden, Paul Benjamin, and two people could not make it, Andy Klepacki and Shardul Parmar. And I'm your moderator, Kirk Watley. One quick announcement, Hadley Mothers Club Candidates Night. It is actually going to happen. May 13th, 6:30, right here at Hopkins. Thank you, Hadley Mothers Club. And I'll do a little reminder at the end of the meeting as well. I think that's great to have that going. I would like to this time to introduce two distinguished visitors, Senator Comerford and Representative Carey. Right over there. All right.
Perfect. Thank you very much. My name is Dan Carey. I'm the state representative for the 2nd Hampshire District. It's my distinct honor to represent Hadley in the Massachusetts House of Representatives. And we just wanted to take a quick minute, we know you have a lot of work to get to recognize our friend Joyce Chungalo. Joyce doesn't know we're doing this, which adds to the fun for us. Joyce has served the town of Hadley with distinction for decades. I don't want to say as long as I've been alive. I won't say that. And Carolyn gave me a list of all the committees and boards and commissions and projects that Joyce was a part of over the last 30 plus years. And I didn't bring it with me, would be here until Tuesday. But it's remarkable, and it goes on, and we see improvements around town that are thanks to your dedication and your time and so many other folks who've worked with you over the years. So I want to congratulate you and thank you, and I brought a citation from the Massachusetts House of Representatives. Be it hereby known to all that the Massachusetts House of Representatives offers its sincerest congratulations to Joyce Chungalo in recognition of over 35 years of dedicated service to the Hadley community. The entire House membership extends its very best wishes and expresses the hope for future good fortune and continued success in all endeavors. Signed by myself and Speaker of the House, Ron Mariano. I want to introduce Senator Comerford, please.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to join Rep. Carey in honoring Joyce. I will say that, and Dan and I talk about this all the time, there is simply nothing harder than municipal service. There is absolutely nothing harder. And I have the honor of representing the Hampshire Franklin Worcester District in the Senate, and I joined Dan in the service of Hadley. And I can tell you that on the hardest days that we have in the legislature, they can't hold a candle to what you've been doing all these years in Hadley. So this is a Senate citation, also signed by the Senate President, Karen Spilka, who joins me in congratulating you and thanking you for your service. Senator Spilka was a municipal official before she went to the legislature, so she knows how hard the work that you've been doing is. And it's similar to Dan, so I won't read it, but it really, it celebrates the work you've been doing for 36 years in the school committee, on the select board, and so many other areas to make Hadley a place where everyone can thrive. So thank you, Joyce.
Molly, seeing as how I skipped over you last time, would you like to come up? Molly Keegan.
Thank you. All right. So the upcoming Memorial Day Parade in Hadley bears a significant weight this year. Oh, is that it? Okay. The upcoming Memorial Day Parade in Hadley bears a significant weight this year as Joyce Chunglo, a longtime elected official, will not be marching for the first time in 36 years. Joyce has been an active member of the community, serving in various capacities throughout the years, and believing that involvement is critical to make a difference in her community. Joyce has deep roots in the area, having grown up in Northampton with parents Robert and Anna Hafey. She graduated from St. Michael's and joined Cooley Dickinson Hospital as a nurse in 1970, having previously worked as a candy striper while in high school. She married Danny Chunglo the following year and moved to Hadley. While continuing her nursing career, she had 2 children, Sarah and Daniel, and later embarked on a second career in politics. Joyce was first elected to the school committee in 1988, serving for 15 years before being elected to the select board in 2003. She served 7 terms on the board, a total of 21 years, during which time she maintained an open-door policy for all of the residents of Hadley, often inviting residents who came to her house with a problem to join her family for dinner to discuss it further. Joyce's commitment to the community was reflected in her work on various committees, including the Hopkins Academy Addition Renovation Committee, the Water and Sewer Commission, the Chief of Police Search Committee, the North Hadley Fire Substation Building Committee, and the Ambulance Committee. She also served as the Public Safety Liaison for the board. Joyce's years as a nurse have instilled in her a deep appreciation for public safety. She understands the importance of the police, fire, and emergency dispatch departments in a community because of her medical experience. One personal experience that reinforced her support for the fire department was when her daughter Sarah was saved by Fire Chief Jim Keitsa during a chimney fire when she was still a little baby. Joyce retired from Cooley Dickinson Hospital a few years ago, having spent 54 years as a nurse. Despite her retirement, she still works a couple of days a week. Her dedication to the town of Hadley spans 36 years, during which she served the school committees, select board, and the community who knows that the town is a special place to live. Joyce's unwavering commitment to this community has made a significant impact on the town and its residents. The town of Hadley expresses its gratitude to Joyce Chunglo for her 36 years of service to the town and for being a role model for community involvement. Joyce, thank you.
I'm not going to say a whole lot tonight, but I just want to express my gratitude to everyone that's here, to the whole town. It's been a great 36 years, and I'm surprised I'm not bawling, but I just has found it to be a great privilege that I've been able to serve this town and to serve the people of this town and community. It's been a life for me, and it's been a part of my family, so I consider you all my family, and thank you so much for allowing me to do it, actually, so thank you.
All right, get this microphone back up to regular height here. All right, there we go. All right, so very briefly, going to go over the decorum of the meeting. It's the same thing as usual, but I need to read it according to town meeting time. So we'll be running the meeting according to town meeting time rules. If you wish to speak to an article, please come to the microphones and wait to be recognized by the moderator. State your name and residential address when you are recognized to speak. Keep all motions or all comments relative to the article at hand. Don't refer to any previous speaker by name. Use previous speaker instead. Direct your comments to the moderator. You can speak as many times as you want, but please give others a chance to get to the microphone if you're going for a second or third time. If necessary, I'll waive somebody ahead of someone who's already spoken. All amendments must be submitted to the moderator as soon as the amendment is offered, or Jess will hurt me. There's forms at the back table. All right, thank you. And I didn't do it, but I'm going to do it. Actually, I did do it. I ask you to silence all electronic devices. All right, we're going to discuss the consent agenda. And the warrant articles on the consent agenda are exceptions to the general process of town meeting. The Select Board, Moderator, and Finance Committee identify for the town meeting consideration these articles they believe to be should generate no controversy, basically housekeeping stuff, and can be properly voted on without debate. These articles are put on the consent agenda to allow motions under the articles to be acted upon as one unit and passed without debate, and in theory that saves time. At the call of the consent agenda, the moderator will read out the numbers of the articles one by one. If one or more voters object to a particular article being included in the consent agenda, say hold, and that article will be removed from the consent agenda. After the calling of the individual items for the consent agenda, the moderator will ask for a motion that the voters pass all items remaining as a unit with one vote. Use of the consent agenda process makes town meeting more efficient in speeding up the handling of non-controversial items. The consent agenda also includes procedural motion to allow department heads to address the town meeting from time to time for information. Now, go to the handout for the warrant. The articles on the consent agenda are Article 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So they're in a row. Then Article 12 and Article 13. I'm going to give you guys some time just to look at those to see if anybody has any objections to those.
Mr. Moderator,
Yes, sir.
could we have Edwin Matusco, 116 Stockbridge Street, bingo. Could we have just someone speak a couple minutes, a minute, half a minute to each article so we know what we're voting on?
I didn't hear them, but I do have all of the consents that I would like to just...
Yeah, Edwin asked if someone could just address each article very quickly.
Yep, I'm all ready.
Okay.
Yep.
We anticipated that. Good question, Edwin.
All right, thank you. All right, number 2 is grants. This is a standard article that allows the town to accept grants and gifts throughout the fiscal year so that a town meeting does not have to be called when we receive gifts and grants. Article 3 is Chapter 90. This is another standard article that is required by the state that allows the town to receive and expend Chapter 90 funds, which are used to repair and maintain roads and bridges. Number 4 is short-term borrowing. This allows the treasurer to borrow up to 1 year in the event that the town experiences cash flow problems. We have never had to do this yet, but it is an important tool to have. Number 5, contracts in excess of 3 years. This authorizes the town administrator or select board to solicit awards and contracts for terms exceeding 3 years if it is in the best interest of the town. This does not include employee contracts. These are just vendors and consultants. Number 7, prior year invoices. These are bills that were received after the June 30th, 2023, and of...
Article 6.
What was it? No, I'm sorry. I did skip it. I have it here, because I am going to explain that a little bit more in detail. This article sets the maximum amount to be spent from these departmental revolving funds established by town bylaws for FY25 in connection with the operation of programs or activities that generate fees, charges, or other receipts to support all or some of the expenses of these programs or activities. Basically, services that are charged, or there's a fee for an instructor, and we need to pay the instructor, whether it's Parks and Rec or the COA, which I'm going to talk about because there's a little bit of a change there. This is what the revolving fund is. It is not an allocation of money. It's only a spending limit. The change this year is there was a COA revolving van account for $3,000. That was used years ago for van fares that helped pay for the cost of running the van. That isn't a grant program now. It's a different way to pay for those services. Now, we were using another account, which is a gift account, as a revolving account. The best practice is to include all of the programs at the Council on Aging that charge for a fee. Say a yoga teacher charges a fee and a resident pays for that service. This is how we pay it. So you are not appropriating money here. You're just, this right here is we're changing the name to the COA revolving fund and also raising the limit from $3,000 to $5,000. Back to 7, that's prior. Oh. These are CPA, Community Preservation Act Committee funds. This is each year. Money is established for open space, historical preservation, and housing resources. Is $50,000 each. This is also where money is set aside for administrative expenses of $10,000. Article 13 is CPA extensions. There's typically a 2 or 3 year limit on projects. If they are not done and need extra time, this is just authorizing that time, another extension to be able to finish a project.
For projects that are already underway.
Projects that are already underway, yes.
Okay. Any questions? Any holds?
Could you explain why?
Need a name and address, I'm sorry.
Greg Kwolek, 16 East Commons Drive. Clock repair, First Congo Church, the steeple. What is the reason for the extensions? Is it work? Is it expenses? What is the reason?
Mary, would you care to address that? You guys can hear me okay in the back, right? Can you hear the speakers in the back okay?
Is there someone working on that that would like to,
Yeah,
Mary Thayer on
Get down on the
179?
microphone, Mary.
Mary Thayer, 179 Hockenham Road. Is there someone that's working on that that would like, I can do it generally. There's been extra engineering studies required by the town that they're working on to find out exactly what they need to do, and it's just been a process. They're working on it. It's just didn't get done within the time frame that we had of 2 years, so we're putting another 2 years on.
Why wasn't it accomplished in 2 years?
My understanding is that they thought they had what they needed in place, but more was required to get the permits and everything to go forward with the project. So they had to kind of backpedal and work on, it's been a hard environment to get things done too, but I don't know all the details.
Okay.
Are there any costs associated with this extension?
No. Any other questions or any holds for the consent agreement articles? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your cards. Thank you. You can put those down. All those opposed? Passes. I'm sorry. Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second? There's a motion and a second. Okay, my apologies. I thought I'd read it in motion form, but I didn't. Thank you for catching it, Randy. All right, so again, all in favor, please raise your cards. Thank you. You can put those down. All those opposed? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Article 1. There it is. What's that? Okay, Article 1 is a notice that was posted, so we're going to move to Article 3 then, correct? 7, Article 7, that's right. I'm getting confused now. Article 7, move the town transfer $150,000 from the water reserves to the Water Plant Filtration Stabilization Fund as per the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 40, subsection 5B, for the purpose of repairing and replacing the water plant filtration membranes and associated expenses. Is there a second? Second. Finance Committee recommends 500. Select Board recommends 500. Are there any questions?
I was just going to give a quick explanation. So the article helps protect the town's investment in the water treatment plant. So the article transfers money into a targeted fund specifically for the purposes of replacing the filtration units at the end of their useful life. Each unit is expected to last at least 10 years. It is expected that in 2027, all 3 filters will need to be replaced at an estimated cost of $700,000. If passed tonight, the balance will be $382,818. This article is funded through the water reserves and has no impact on anyone's taxation.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please raise your cards. Thank you. You can put those down. All those opposed, please raise your card. Unanimous. Thank you. Article 8, move that the town vote to transfer from free cash as printed in the warrant $2,313,999. The cents threw me off. To cover the costs associated with prior year budgets. Is there a second? Finance Committee recommends 500. Select Board recommends 500. Are there any questions?
So these bills were received after the close of the 20 fiscal year '23, and therefore we have to vote on them. We can't just pay them. They're for services that happened in last year.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, move to a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Thank you. You can put those down. All those opposed, please raise your cards. It is unanimous. Article 9. Move that, I got this one right, move that $21,698,814 be appropriated as set forth in the individual budget appropriations listed under column FY 2025 Finance Committee budget as described in Table 1A of the General Fund budget in the handout entitled Finance Committee FY 2025 as presented at the annual town meeting and incorporated by reference herein, and as funding therefore to transfer from local revenue, funds raised via taxation, and any other available funds to raise and appropriate and transfer from available funds the sum of $21,698,814 as estimated in Table A1, and to fund the operating budget as set forth therein. Is there a second?
Second.
David Phil, I'm going to ask you to work on this.
Can I make a motion? Make a motion to not do the reading of the budget? Line item.
Okay, a motion has been made to would not do the reading of the budget line by line. Is there a second? Thank you. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Awesome, thank you. Those opposed, please raise your cards. Unanimous decision. Good call, Joyce, thank you. David, you're up.
Okay. So these are the cash balances from May 2nd, 2024. This was the slide that was up on the screen when everybody was filing in. This budget was approved unanimously by the Select Board and the Finance Committee both, and it was something that was worked on with the financial management team at Town Hall, Linda, the Treasurer, Carolyn, Finance Committee, Select Board, et cetera. Go to the next one. If anybody has any questions about these reserve funds, but these are the starting and ending balances for all of those reserve funds. I'm not going to read them out as long as everybody can see them. Is there any questions about those? Give them a second.
No questions? Okay, all right. Keep going, Dave. Are you all done?
All right, and then is there one more? Yep, there we go. And so here is where some of the money is going to be coming from for the spending that's within this budget out of the various enterprise funds or reserve funds. Any questions about that? And all of these have no impact on taxation, on your level of taxation. I don't see any questions. Keep going. All right. And this is where all the money is coming from to balance this budget. And so I'll give everybody a chance to look through that.
Microphone, Edwin.
Yep, Edwin Matusco, 116 Stockbridge Street. We're taking out of free cash that money to balance the budget, or shouldn't we keep that in there?
So this free cash amount is from last year's budget. Every July 1st, thereabouts, we get our certified free cash from the previous year. And so this was kind of our leftover savings account, I guess you could say, from last year that was unspent money. And so we're spending out of that leftover balance on roughly July 1st of this year. We'll get a new certified free cash, and it'll roll back over into the budget for the following year.
Thank you.
Yep.
Shell Horowitz, 16 Barstow Lane. I'm just wondering what the $800K in other available funds is coming from.
That one is... That's the line item from the certified free cash, stabilization funds, and the premium balance.
Got it, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Keep going, David.
If there's no other questions, we'll keep moving. Good. Next slide. No, okay, yep. And that's it for Article 9. This is Article 10 here, so let's go back a slide until we vote on it. All set.
Okay. Any questions or comments on Article 9? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of Article 9, please raise your cards. Thank you. You can put those down. All those opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. Article 10, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sum or sums of money for the salaries, expenses, and debt, and to provide a reserve fund for the Wastewater Division Enterprise Fund, the Water Division Enterprise Fund, and the Hadley Media Enterprise Fund for the ensuing fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2024, which sums of money to be offset by revenues from the Sewer Division Enterprise Fund, the Water Division Enterprise Fund, and the Hadley Media Enterprise Fund received during fiscal year 2025 to take any action relative thereto. Do I have a second?
Second.
Finance Committee recommends 500. Select Board recommends 500. And who's tackling that one? David, you're up again.
Okay, for Article 10, these are all the various enterprise funds and what's coming out of them to balance this year's budget. If there's any questions about that. No. Quick and easy. Okay, next. I think that's the only one for Article 10. Perfect.
Any questions or comments on Article 10? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor, please signify by raising your card. Thank you. You can lower that. All those opposed, please raise your card. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Article 11, that the town will transfer from the Hadley Media Reserve Fund the sum of $13,958.47 to FY 2024 legal expenses related to the cable contract negotiations. Do I have a second? Finance Committee recommends 500. Select Board 500. And Jane.
So the contract negotiations for the charter contract are very long and involved. It's over a 100-page document. We redo it every 10 years. We hired a specific lawyer who does contract negotiations, not our regular legal fee, and it was paid out of the general fund, but the money should come from the cable enterprise fund, so this is to transfer the money back to the general fund.
Any questions or comments?
Tony Fiden, Cold Spring Lane. I'm wondering why the money is coming out of the Hadley Media Fund when it's for legal fees. It seems kind of short-sighted to take money from Hadley Media's fund just because it's tangentially related to the cable renegotiation is pretty broad. It's not just about Hadley Media, and it could strap Hadley Media. It's pretty. There's not a lot of money for that organization, so I'm not sure if this is a good idea.
I'll start with that. So the enterprise funds do have money that is paid for legal fees. It's exactly what that legal fee line item pays for. We understand that the Select Board are addressing Hadley Media in general, and so is our Director Alex Lamarche, because we realize that funds are dwindling there, and we're not taking the revenue that we're getting. There's just not as many subscribers. So we are addressing that, but this is the rightful place for that charge to come from.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of Article 11, please raise your card. Thank you. You can put those down. All those opposed? The count is 173 to 1. Article 12 we've gone over. Article 13 was also part of the consent agreement. Article 14, move the town vote to transfer $50,000 from the Community Preservation Act Historic Reserve and $100,000 from the Community Preservation Act Undesignated Fund for the stabilization of the Porter Phelps House under the terms delineated in Article 13 of the annual town meeting warrant for May 2nd, 2024, and incorporated by reference herein. Further, that the Select Board be authorized to enter into and accept an historic preservation restriction on the property. Do I have a second? Second. Mary. And Mary, get right on top of that microphone if you would, so people in back can hear you.
Mary Thayer, 179 Hockenham Road. I'm chair of the CPA committee. I have the pleasure to turn this over to Marla Miller, who's very much prepared to talk about it. Other than to say the CPA committee did recommend it.
And again, it's awkward, but get right up on top of that microphone.
Yep. Is this good?
That's good.
Okay. Wow. Marla Miller, 106 Rocky Hill Road. So the article seeks $150,000 from CPA's preservation funds to stabilize the historic house at Phelps Farm. And I'm speaking to it because I was the principal investigator for the National Register nomination that recently put the house on the National Register. So just as a thumbnail sketch for folks who don't know the property, the farm was established by Charles Porter Phelps in 1816, but it was known more recently in town as the Scott Farm, and it was once the largest farm in Hadley. The federal-style farmhouse has design elements associated with Asher Benjamin. You can go through these slides. I didn't know we were going to have them, but there's some nice pictures here. Yes, I can. Thank you, Shal. I'm nervous.
We're all friends here.
That's right. That's right. So the house is associated with Asher Benjamin, who's an important early American architect, but it was constructed by local builders. The size of the farming enterprise shrank in the 19th century. In the 1840s, it was the largest farm in town. It shrank over time. In the 1880s, it got smaller. And in the early 20th century and into the 1970s, it was a fairly modest dairy farm. The dairy herd was sold in the 1970s, but the land has been continuously farmed, most recently by the Parsons family. The house is significant to Hadley for a range of reasons, partly because the Porter Phelps Huntington Museum, which folks here might know, tells mostly an 18th and 19th century story. But Phelps Farm carries that story forward in time to the 19th and 20th century. So it helps us learn more and talk about Hadley's Black community, its Irish and Polish communities, and it also offers a chance to understand and tell people about the longer and larger histories of farming in Hadley, including the merino sheep craze, apple orchards, and the tobacco and dairy industry. So many folks in town will know that house hasn't had a full-time occupant since the 1980s. As a result, the house has seen a lot of deterioration and damage from animals, water and weather, molds, and other threats to the building. In 2022, the property was donated to the foundation, which now seeks to stabilize and in time rehabilitate the historic buildings for contemporary uses that will serve the museum, the foundation, and the town. So there's a lot of work to do. Anyone who's driven up Highway 47 and goes by the structure knows that it's in a significant state of disrepair. But the good news is that a study by a preservation firm, which has also worked at Monticello and Montpelier and other buildings historic and important to the nation, included a review by a structural engineer, and both that and the review of a local architectural conservator have found that the building has good bones and with care can be brought back to life. But the time to do it is now. Further delay introduces the real risk that the building will get to a place where it isn't salvageable. So there's a brochure which I hope you had a chance to look at. The main lines of activity are to install a temporary roof over the house to keep the elements out while the other work unfolds. Yeah, this is a really helpful image. to install posts in the cellar to support the framing, to take steps throughout to keep the house dry, and to repair and replace framing and other elements of the L. We're often asked what purpose the structure would serve once it is brought back in service. And the short of it is there are just a lot of opportunities there, but this work is going to take a long time. So final decisions about those uses will necessarily wait until the repair work is further along. But just to suggest some possibilities, the museum could use additional space. Folks who have attended events in the Corn Barn know that that space isn't very large and is also seasonal. So if this house were put back in service, then you can imagine year-long events. We could recover the parlor and the library. You can imagine cultural events, events that talk about the agricultural and environmental histories of Hadley. People have suggested things like knitting groups could meet there, reading groups could meet there, music lessons could be given there. So there's a lot. It's an open future. I think the museum is really inspired by the work that Historic Northampton has done with the Shepherd Barn to involve the community, and that's kind of the model they're using. So this is all going to unfold slowly and in phases, but before decisions can be made about use, the building has to survive. And so that's what tonight's vote is about. And I'll note that the foundation is not asking the town to cover the full cost of stabilization. The foundation will also be pursuing a range of grants, and they have a fantastic track record here. Since 2020, they've applied for 18 grants and won 15 of them. So anyone here in the nonprofit world will know what a strong record that is. But prospective funders need to know that the town cares about this project and cares about the property. So I hope tonight you'll help preserve it and then think about how to use it.
I have a question, if you don't mind, just
Yeah.
as a point of clarity.
Yeah.
The very last line in the motion, and accept an historic preservation restriction on the property. What is that?
You know, is Tom Harris here? Where's Tom? Other people can speak to more of these details than I can, and I would prefer that Tom do that if we can find him.
Actually, town council can address that.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Moderator, when you use CPA money for a property like this under the historic bucket, so to speak, you're required to get a historic preservation restriction. And so it's a model from the Mass Historic Commission. So the town, myself, would work with whoever's getting the grant, and then we would work with MHC to finalize the restriction, and that would get recorded at the Registry of Deeds so that somebody couldn't come along once you put the money into it and tear the house down.
Or use it for a commercial purpose, or
No, it doesn't prevent the use for a commercial purpose. It secures the architecture and the setting.
Any other questions or comments?
Greg Kwolek, 16 East Commons Drive. What is the relationship between the Porter Phelps Huntington Foundation and the town of Hadley?
Anybody know?
This is a private foundation.
What's that?
Is there a relationship?
Does anybody have an answer to that?
I don't think there is.
There is no relationship between the Porter Phelps Huntington Foundation and the town of Hadley, but yet we are being asked to forego $150,000 for the preservation of something we have no relationship with.
Andy, do you have something to add to it or a question? Just the microphone in usual routine, Andy.
Andy Morse, Ribbon 45 Roosevelt Street. Just to clarify your question, do you mean what kind of relationship? Do you mean a governmental relationship or a fiscal relationship or any kind? Well, I feel to answer your question, the relationship is that this historic asset is in Hadley and preserves our history. And that is the connection. And that is why it deserves support.
How much revenue has the Porter Phelps Huntington Foundation generated over the past 5 years relative to the town of Hadley, which you've already said there is no relationship?
I'll just pop up again, Marla Miller, 106 Rocky Hill Road, and I don't have a number for you, but it's a nonprofit, so it's not a revenue-generating enterprise. It's a museum and educational facility.
So there is no financial relationship between the town of Hadley and the Porter Phelps Huntington Foundation? No. But yet they're coming to ask for $150,000 from our money for something that we don't receive any benefit from, except it's a historical place.
Town council?
So perhaps just to clarify for the gentleman, the Community Preservation Act has, which you know is funding based upon taxes raised by the town and put into the CPA for the purpose of preservation of open space, creation of affordable housing, and preservation of historic resources, public or private. And in fact, there has been an SJC decision that says the benefit that the municipality gets from donating money to historic entities that are private is in fact the preservation restriction, that is a value received by the municipality to preserve those historic assets as a background.
Shell, you've been waiting there.
Shell Horowitz, 16 Barstow Lane, which happens to be a house built in 1743 that makes it older actually than the Porter Phelps and the historical building in the center of town, the little museum there. I came to Hadley in part because Hadley is a town that treasures its historical buildings. Hadley doesn't knock them down and put up 8-story monstrosities like certain towns to the east of us. Hadley respects its farm heritage, its agricultural heritage, its cultural heritage in ways that are very special. I have been to the Porter Phelps Museum for a number of times, and I especially enjoy it when they do a free tour for townies, which I think that happens one day a year. But I'm not familiar with this particular building, but I imagine it's very close by and could be an ancillary use as Marla was describing, as the previous speaker was describing. And it seems to me that what we can do in terms of my understanding of the general economic picture, money put into cultural amenities tends to bring lots more money than is spent in the form of people having dinner in the restaurants, maybe going to a show afterwards. It's a good investment. So I'm planning to support this. It seems well thought out, and I always worry when we let a building go too long. There's a building extremely close to where we were standing that was torn down a few years ago, the gym of Russell School, because it had gotten beyond the point of fixing, and Russell School itself is right at that cusp. So let's preserve what we have.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Melinda Nielsen, 20 Middle Street. Melinda Nielsen, 20 Middle Street. I have been inside the building, and the living room, or whatever you would call it in a mansion, is really a grand room. Just really great architectural features inside. And when I was there, I just thought to myself, this would be such a great place to have a prom and anything else like that. I mean, Marla made clear that there's no commitment as to what the use would be, but it would be a really grand event space. Thank you.
Thank you.
Andy Morris, Rabin, 45 Roosevelt Street. I just want to be clear that I'm giving my own opinion and not the opinion of the CPA committee, of which I am member and vice chair. This is more than just a stabilization project for this historic building, which I think is very worthwhile. Just to answer the gentleman's question, there are no direct tax payments from the foundation to the town of Hadley, but historic tourism brings hundreds of thousands of dollars a year into the state and into our general economy. This is just the first phase of a project that's really going to make Hadley a historic hub of the entire Pioneer Valley. It's going to be a campus, it's going to be a repository, it's going to be an internationally famous site on the history of farming, the history of your grandparents and your great-grandparents, how they lived, how they struggled, how they worked. It's going to be a repository for local history, the history of us, and how we got to where we are today. It's a beautiful house. You're going to love the tour. I encourage everybody to support this worthy project.
Ma'am, you can crank the microphone, just turn it down to you. Take it, just tilt it. There you go. And again, you have to be right on top of it, I'm sorry.
I'm Liz Scott. I live at 115 River Drive, which is Phelps Farm. And the farm has been a part of the agricultural landscape of Hadley for now 207 years. It was in my family for 205 of those years. And thank you, Parsons family, for keeping it going for the last 4 some odd decades. The farm has a lot to offer along with the house. We have very good relationships with New England Falconry, who has been with my family now for 20 years plus. Parsons Farms for between 44 and 47. Kestrel Land Trust, who has a project going on the property and are also putting in trails behind it that are absolutely fascinating and wonderfully educational. I've been to their programs and learned a lot myself. So the farm has a great deal to offer, both in the house and in the history and research possibilities, recreational possibilities. And as Marla pointed out, the house is at a point right now, regrettably, where it's now or never, but I do believe that it can be a major asset to the community. And I would like to join Porter Phelps in inviting all of you to make suggestions to them about what you would like to see as uses for the property. Come by and visit it. If you don't know it, come meet it, because we would be delighted to have your input and whatever encouragement you care to offer whenever you can. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to have Tim, because you haven't spoken yet, Tim.
Tim Nyhart, 16 Kosher Drive. I've been in this house numerous times over the years, and I totally agree that this is probably one of the best ways of using our CPA money. This house is so unique with architectural features that are astounding, and it's a shame that this house is in the condition it is, and this is the only time that we can start this process properly and get this house back to a use that will be beneficial to everybody in this town. So I really deplore everybody to definitely vote for this. This is going to be one of the best things we've done in this town for a long, long time. Thank you.
Hi, Michael Sarzinski, 14 East Commons Drive. Hi, everybody. I got a little connection to the Porter Phelps Huntington house. My father plowed snow there in the late 50s, early 60s. He got $8 a storm. It was pretty good money back then. I'll certainly support this article, but just a question about the Porter Phelps Huntington Foundation. I know it's a 529. Who is the board of directors? Are they Hadley residents? And does it have any other assets besides the house and the farmland associated with it?
If you know the answer, please, yeah.
Yes, the house has a board of directors. It has one full-time employee and a couple, some summer help. And the board of directors is from the valley. Like, there are Hadley folks on the board. There are people from Amherst on the board. They recruit the expertise that they need. And so people who are archivists, preservationists, curators, local folks. And so, it's a board, so the residential part evolves over time. But there are people from Hadley. Barbara Matthews, who many of you know, has been on the board for a while, but she has just moved out of town, or I think it would be her at the mic and not me.
Hi, Brian Carroll, 26 Breckenridge Road. I'm all supporting for renovating and keeping all historic sites within the town's means and ability to do so. But right now, I think the town has multiple buildings that need and have been talked about renovating, like the building right behind us, the old Russell School. The old fire station in North Hadley, which had to be sold because we didn't have the money to, excuse me, to renovate that and restore that. I just fear that we spread the money so far that at any point, we have not enough money to restore any of them, and we're just throwing money at just keeping something with a roof over it and not actually getting things done and restoring these beautiful historic facilities.
Michelle Morris Friedman, 45 Roosevelt Street. The point I wanted to make is that as far as I understand, and Mary perhaps can speak to this, there are ample funds in the CPA fund, and there have not been enough applications or grants to disperse all that money. The point is that voting for this will not take money away from any other projects, because these other projects that were just mentioned are not in the works. There have not been grant applications to the CPA on them. So voting for this is not robbing anybody of their grants at this point. The money is just sitting there waiting to be used, and I think this is a worthy project.
Ma'am.
Thank you. Denise Delsey, 1 Hockenham Road. I love the idea of preserving the historic buildings, especially that the money's already been allocated. Just wondering if we can the buildings work for us during the process as well as at the end of the process. I was happy to hear that there's a summer employee, but if we can get the place full, even if there's like one room and running water and so forth, so that someone could actually reside there while they're fixing the place up and maybe do some swapping for housing while they're, you know, not only it, but working on it. And slowly, you know, build it out so that there can be occupants in the place who enjoy living there while they're working there. Just to add to the comment, the best way to keep things like mouse and animal destruction away from a building like that, which is usually the biggest cause, would be to have an occupant there.
Greg Kwolek, 16 East Commons Drive. So far,
Look closer to the microphone.
The town council and everyone has said, shoulda, coulda, woulda, it's gonna be, it's, you know, in the future, we gotta, so on and so forth, but no one has offered any concrete what's gonna happen after we expend this money, because we don't own it, the foundation owns it, so they can do whatever they want with it. Mr. Moderator, may I ask the town meeting a question?
Address it to me if you would, and the town will hear
Mr.
it.
Moderator, I would
Yes.
like to, by a show of hands, to see how many people have actually been inside the Porter Phelps Huntington House in the last 20 years. Oh. Well, that's good. But, yes, no, so my point is, we can spend the money to do it, but we're not sure what's going to happen. What if the foundation decides to do something else with it than the citizens of Hadley want to do?
Sir.
Alan Weinberg, 108 Bay Road. I'd like to move the question.
That cuts off all conversation for a vote. This is a majority vote. If you're in favor of moving the question, please raise your card. Oh, holy smoke. No question there. Conversation's cut off. We're moving directly to a vote. This is for Article 14. All in favor, please raise your card. Thank you. You can put that down. All opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. $174 to 9. The motion passes. Article 15, move the town vote to transfer $40,000 from the Community Preservation Act undesignated fund to hire an architect to prepare a design and construction budget for the rehabilitation and restoration of Hadley's Town Hall under terms delineated in Article 15 of the annual town meeting warrant for May 2nd, 2024, and incorporated herein. Is there a second? Second. All right. Mary. And again, right on top of the microphone, Mary.
Mary Thayer, 179 Hockenham Road. I hope everyone grabbed our brochure as you came in. It's got a lot of information on the CPA fund. Current balance available is about $2.4 million. Since the last town meeting, over $1 million was spent out of the CPA, and there's a lot of information on what projects have been done. For this particular one, I'm going to actually turn it over to Carolyn Brennan.
Carolyn, Town Administrator. Oh, got to get her a mic.
So with the intent of continuing to maintain that historic landscape at the center of town, this has been a desire. Since I've been here, I have heard the most about the town hall as well as Russell School. So Russell School is in a study right now, looking for a feasibility study. This is strictly to hire an architect or a consultant to restore or repair or replace the windows. We're really looking to restore the windows. We're looking to the exterior to see whether it's to keep the historic look of the building. There's different options, as well as if you've been to the town hall recently, there are these really wonderful substantial cracks that get bigger and bigger, and we're very concerned about the stability of the cement steps as well as the ADA ramp. So this is strictly right now for the architect, consultant, engineer, whoever would fit the criteria to take a look at that project as a whole.
Thank you. Any questions or comments concerning Article 15? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of Article 15, please raise your cards. Thank you. You can put those down. All those opposed, please raise your card. Article 15 passes unanimously. Article 16, move the Select Board is authorized to purchase, take, or otherwise acquire the property located at 234 Middle Street, 1.6 acres plus or minus, and pay for said acquisition, authorize the treasurer to borrow $325,000, and said amount to be paid 15% from water enterprise, 15% from sewer enterprise, and 70% from the general fund, said to be held in the Select Board's care, custody, and control for general municipal purposes, and to further authorize the Select Board to execute any and all documents to effectuate said acquisition. Is there a second? Effectuate, I haven't seen that word in a long time. Randy.
Okay, so those of you that don't know, 234 Middle Street abuts the current DPW property to the south. And purchasing this property is in anticipation of a new DPW facility being proposed for the future, and that part of it's not being voted on tonight. That would have to be another town meeting approval. We have current plans. Preliminary design calls for 2 floors due to the size of the existing property. Acquiring this property will allow for a single floor for the whole building, and the cost of this property will be far less than the cost of a second floor on the new building. And if you have taxation questions and whatnot, we have an expert to answer those for you.
That's a drum roll for you, Linda. Come on up. And close to the microphone again, please.
All right. Hi, I'm Linda Sanderson. I'm the town treasurer. I live at 388 River Drive. Jennifer, if we could back up. So at this point, what we have is 4 borrowing articles tonight. So we thought it would be useful to do a quick overview of all 4 of them and show where the money is going to come from and how the town is going to afford it, rather than handle it one by one, which we will. But the 4, right now before us is Article 16 for the $325,000. We will be paying that $227,500 out of the general fund budget. And because it's DPW, a portion is also allocated to the water and the sewer budgets. That's where the payments will be coming from for the debt and interest after we do the borrowing. If I could then jump to 21, similarly, there's $250,000. We're going to be doing short-term borrowing for those 2 items. $250,000 will be completely out of general fund. So, Jennifer, if we could jump to the next slide. This is, now, when you voted on your budget earlier in the meeting, one of the lines in the general fund was for our borrowing budget. We spend $1.7, almost $1.8 million a year to pay down general fund debt. And the water budget included $306,725 for water debt payment, and sewer, $175,964 for sewer debt. So that's almost $2.3 million in our regular budget, which will be in '25, and the same for the next year. These are, we are not raising additional money to pay this each year. This is part of the budget. So if we could back up again, so Articles 16 and 21 are absorbed right within that budget in the general fund. The reason I wanted to speak specifically about borrowing tonight is because they're extraordinarily large. Compared to our last few years, we've got $2 million for a fire truck and, thank you, and oh, okay.
It'll help the context. Okay,
Yeah,
all right,
that's
I apologize.
what we were, no,
Okay, sorry.
it's up to you.
No, then
I mean,
if it'll help the context, then go ahead and continue.
Right, because I think when we go borrow this one and then the next one, by the time you get to Article 3, people say, that's enough. So I think I wanted to give an overview of if we pass all 4 of this, how will it happen? So, yeah, $2 million for the fire truck. I'm not advocating for these articles. I'm just explaining how we would pay for it. $2 million for the fire truck. That would be borrowed and paid out of the general fund budget. And for the water tanks, it's a $9 million article. We're expecting a grant. $6.3 million would be borrowed, most of it out of the general fund. $2.8 million out of the general fund, and a bit more than that out of the water budget. So you're wondering how much do we have to increase our taxes or our water rates to cover these. In both cases, they're already, believe it or not, going to be covered within that same budget, and I'm going to explain why. For the fire department, we've already passed the $1 million on the school renovations. Your taxes have already increased to pay for that $1 million over the next 4 years. When we pay for the fire truck in the 5th year, because it's 4 years away, we will be done with the school, and this will step in and take exactly that same amount of money from the 5th year on. Even though it's twice as much, we're going to borrow the fire truck over 10 years. And the school renovations were paid over 5. So as a result, there's not going to be any increase from the fire truck. The water tanks, 20 years ago, there was an article to fund the Callahan Wells project for your drinking water. Coincidentally, the very same thing we're voting on tonight for the water tanks is for the town's drinking water. The Water Wells project is costing the town $330,000 a year between water and general fund to pay for that debt, which will be done in 2 years. Again, it's going to be a pretty even match. The taxes will not go up. We are going to continue that same debt payment to cover the water tanks. And there may be a slight increase in, there may be an increase in the water rates to cover the balance of it. We're not sure yet. Even though this is a larger project than the Callahan Wells, we paid the Callahan Wells over 20 years, and this is going to be borrowed over 30. So we've done our best to keep this as an even payment out of general fund and out of water and sewer so that we can take care of the town's projects take care of the needs, such as fire truck and water tank, without having a big leap in payments. Okay?
That was a lot to digest. I'm sure someone's got a question out there.
I know I'm talking a lot tonight, and I apologize. Shell Horowitz, 16 Barstow Lane. First, Linda, my God, you're amazing. I mean, wow. Thank you for doing this in a way that there is no additional burden to Hadley taxpayers. You don't hear that from government very much. But I had two questions on this property here, number 16. One is, are there plans for disposition of the house? Is there going to be an offer to the community to take it for the cost of moving, or to dismantle it and use it for historic renovations? Or what's going to happen to it, and how old is it? And then the second question has to do with land use from an environmentalist perspective. Often a two-story building is less harmful to the land than a one-story building of twice the footprint to get the same square footage. So I just wonder if these things have been taken into consideration.
So thank you. That's a very good question. And Scott, if you feel like you need to add anything, I'll give you a waiver. You can let me know. So you asked a few questions there. So can I tell you exactly what's going to happen to that house? There's a lot of options, but right now, the benefit of that property, its location, and the benefit of that project, the committee, I think, has weighed that whole challenge of doing a 2-floor versus a 1-floor, and the benefits in so many ways are for a 1-floor. It's also the whole area. It's a lot more room for that garage and space and all of that to pan out. The house itself, there will be a transition anticipated if this project goes through, and I'm confident that it will be, is that we could be using that space for either storage or temporary office space, because that's a whole factor when construction starts, is where does everybody go? So we've thrown out a lot of ideas. I think we will come up with some solution that will be the most beneficial for the town. But all those questions have all come up. But I don't have a specific answer for that, but that we are looking at all of those questions.
Thank you. And I would just add that I think that the price is a very good deal for a large lot in the center of town abutting the existing DPW that needs to expand. So I'm planning to vote for it in any case.
Andy Morris Friedman, 45 Roosevelt Street. I have 3 questions. We're not voting to acquire the property tonight. We're just voting to approve the borrowing. So I guess the select board can acquire the property?
It's acquiring. You are voting to acquire it.
Okay, great. My second question was, is there any possibility, or is there any access to the river from this property?
A portion of it does abut the river. I don't know what the accessibility is. It's relatively steep there, but it's something we can look at.
Right. Are there possibilities of public recreation?
I don't know the answer to that, Andy. That's a very complex question. Conservation Commission needs to be involved in all that kind of stuff, so I wouldn't feel comfortable trying to answer that for you.
Okay, because it is possible to use CPA funds for public recreation if that's a possibility. Thank you.
Jamie Cole, 236 Middle Street. I abut this house. It was purchased by Coles in 1911 for $800. So that's how long it's been in this family. There is riverfront to it, and there's also a tenant that's still living in it. My question is, how come you're buying it for $105,000 more than asking price of that house? Any answer? Does that include the renovation of that house too? Because it's going to need to be remodeled. And there's also a tenant. How long is it going to take to get that tenant out?
So we have looked at all of that, but your answer to that question is we did an assessment of what the cost of it, if it was to sell, and there was also at least 40 to 45 people visiting that to purchase that. And we had a conversation with the attorney on behalf of the family, and it was a benefit for them as well, because they didn't have to go, because the house, it's in such poor condition, there was going to be a challenge with selling it. So this was just an agreement between the town and the attorney who's speaking on behalf of the owner.
Correct. So the house is in such bad condition, but the $325,000 doesn't cover the cost of repair either, right? So it's going to be an additional expense?
There will be an expense with cleaning it up, but it would be much beneficial to utilize that building if this is what the town decides, certainly during the transition of the construction, then to be renting additional space for all of the employees to transition to have a place to have their office and their space.
Okay. So another question is, what's going to happen with my property as it is at 6:30 in the morning? I'm hearing the backup alarms, not from the DPW, but from Eversource, from Mohawk, from the other companies that are storing their vehicles that are right here.
We do have no design for that building at this point. I can't tell you that's where the vehicles are going to be.
But that's what's happening currently, is that these alarms are going off
Exactly.
at 6:30 in the morning.
Yeah, so that, I cannot say that's going to change, that's the location of where the DPW
Correct,
is.
but now they'll just be in my front yard.
I can't tell you where it will be. It may not be. I can't give you that answer.
And
It's premature.
to answer the question about the waterfront, yes, there is waterfront. It is accessible, but we also have two bald eagle nests that's up in our trees right now too. So it's also part of the Indian Hill, which has a lot of artifacts from when the King Philip War happened, and this was actually the last Mohegan tribe that stayed here. This is all part of that property as well. So you're going to have to get architectures out there. You're going to have to get environmentalists out there. This is protected land, agricultural land. So did you consider any of that stuff while trying to acquire this? We got in trouble for having a pile of dirt at the end of our driveway for our conservationists because we had to fill in our driveway. What about all the new trucks that are going to be coming down there and the pickup of the traffic?
I don't know how to answer all that, to be honest with you. We have looked at we would never have pursued this unless we had brought in those people who are aware of those issues to tell us. So all I can tell you, very due diligence was put into this property, but we feel that it is a very valuable piece of property for the town.
Okay. And my last question is, did you approach anybody at 236 Middle Street with your idea of this project?
I did not.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments concerning Article 16? Seeing none, we will move to a vote. All those in favor, please signify by raising your card. Thank you. You can put those down. All those opposed? The count is 163 to 21. The motion passes. Motion 17. I'm guessing why most of you are here. To move the town appropriate $2 million to pay for the cost of the fire department ladder truck and to pay for said appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the select board, is authorized to borrow said amount pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, subsection 7, paragraph 1, or any other part enabling authority, and to issue bonds and notes therefore, and further, that the approval hereof shall not take effect until the town votes to exempt from the limitation on total taxes imposed by General Law, Chapter 59, Chapter 21C, Prop 2.5, for those with gray hair. The amounts required to pay for the principal and interest on the borrowing authorized by this article. Is there a second? Second. There's a motion and a second. One thing I want to point out very quickly is that If we vote in favor of this tonight, and I'm not advocating either way as a moderator, if we vote in favor, it will need to go to a Prop 2.5 override vote of the town. So we are not locking anything in by voting in favor of that tonight. So I just want you to be aware of that. And
I'm going to go first.
oh, okay. While you can, right? Before Mike gets the mic?
I can. Of course, it passed here last year, and it failed at the ballot last year by 20 votes. So this is more than appropriate for us to have this because of it, the extension of the ladder. That's definitely needed now because of the buildings that we have throughout the town. Mike, Chief Spank and Able, is going to do a few slides and go into it further. What I'm saying is that our fire truck now that we have is in need of repairs. The latter part of it is not working. It also is 23 years old. If anybody here in the audience has a car or anything that's 23 years old already, I think the only one is my husband, that he is still driving, but that's another issue. But I don't believe any of us others have a vehicle that's 23 years old that we can rely on. So we need to do the same thing for our fire truck and for our safety. So I'm a very big advocate for us to pass this at the ballot, please. Mike?
One thing I want to mention real quick, to vote on this is the 21st. So the vote on this, if it passes tonight, it goes to the town for a vote. It will be on the 21st. Mike?
Thank you. I got 2 minutes. Yes. So first off, could you go back one? That's our ladder truck right there. And I just wanted to ask, does anybody have any questions up front regarding it? So you can go ahead. Thank you. Here's some facts for you. Currently, our ladder truck is out of service. Does not work. We're waiting for a aftermarket part to be put into it, which was approved for free cash at $37,000. The truck will be gone for another probably 4 to 6 weeks. It was slated to come in on May 1st. However, the part is not complete. They will have to take the entire ladder off to fix it. So 2025, I can tell you right now, I was in DC this past week, and OSHA is coming. Normally, OSHA was not a part of our fire departments, but now we are looking at the potential of numerous NFPA and other standards being imposed as part of OSHA. So according to NFPA standard, by 2025, our current ladder truck should be taken out of service or refurbished. And then that puts it into the role as a backup fire truck. Our ISO rating, we just did an ISO survey, and we were able to bring our ISO rating from a 6.9. They've restructured it now, is now a 4.x, which was an improvement. ISO is your insurance for your homeowner's insurance. So ISO does the surveys on your community. They look at water supply and other things. And basically, we improved our ISO rating. However, if we lose our ladder truck, you're going to see where that's going to increase again. Again, just want to let you know that this is not just strictly a ladder. This is called a Quint. So it has a 750-gallon water tank on it, all the hose that we need, hose supply, and everything. So our department, we do more than just put out fires. A Quint are the original founding fathers of the department who put this truck together back in 2000. Wanted to have a ladder that could get in access real easy, and that's what a Quint is. However, we've had a lot of big structures put up in our community since that time. And again, our aerial ladder, it allows less people to put up this equipment rather than having to try and put up 35-foot stick ladders. The longer it takes to put out a fire, the more valuable you're going to lose in your home, and the longer it takes to put out a fire, the harder it is for us to rescue victims and save property. This is an example for you. This is the Pioneer Valley Chinese Immersion School, 4-story, 55 feet tall. So this is one of many in our community. And again, ladder truck means we're going to have it's going to be a more difficult time for us to get to these upper floors, the third floors in our community. This is an example of what this is actually in Hadley. So you can see it takes a number of firefighters to put up that size ladder, a minimum of 3 for a 35-foot ladder. We lose time again, another fire in Hadley, chimney fire. We just don't have time to wait. Our fire is moving too quickly now. We don't have time. We need this ladder truck in order to put these fires out. There's the two gentlemen from the Hadley Fire Department dealing with a roof fire. I can't imagine if this truck failed when they were on that roof because the fire actually blew out underneath them. So we can't have a ladder truck we're not going to be able to operate. And the photo on the right, you'll see with all the new photovoltaics, the solar panels that we have. Northampton just had a fire on the roof. They can't sprinkler a roof. So we need that ladder truck in order to, and we need to be able to access that roof in order to ventilate, get those hot gases out of the house. Again, winter weather, it's extremely difficult to deploy these ladders in the winter, and then putting our firefighters on the roof in those hazardous conditions. If we have our ladder truck, we can actually operate off of that. 206 Russell Street fire, we had 3 ladders operating on that scene, so we can do our elevated master streams. And this was in North Hadley at the town line where we were called by Sunderland to assist, and our job was to protect the house that was in Hadley because the fire was so hot it was starting to burn the bushes down at the house next door. So the original capital request, we put this in 2014. At that time is $1.15 million. 2024, we've confirmed that it is now $2 million. And the average lifespan, we build our trucks to last 25 to 30 years. And the design and build time has now been extended to 4 years. So it will be 4 years before we will see this truck. So we have a 2000 Seagraves ladder that currently is out of service, and I have to come up with a plan B if we are unable to secure this truck coming in. So this truck is going to be in service for the next 4 years, so I'm going to have to figure out how to make that happen and make sure it's operating safely for our folks. And then I was asked we were at the senior center today, and I was asked about why we need a longer ladder. We need a longer ladder because when we set up for a structure fire, we're supposed to be 1.5 times the distance in the collapse zone. So if I have a 55-story or a 55-foot high building like the Chinese Immersion School, I need to be 1.5 times the height of that building away from it in order not to have the building fall and crush our truck. The fire that you saw on 206 Russell Street, we actually had to stop operations and move the truck back because the front of the building fell out and almost took out our ladder that time. So I was asked why that's so critical. We might have a 105-foot ladder, but when you extend it and put it down, you're probably looking at just under 100 feet that you actually have to work with. So does anybody have any questions?
Hi, Brian Carroll, 26 Breckenridge Road. I want to say in support of this article, just some financial stuff. So what is going to happen with the truck? Is that traded in? Is it like a car you traded in, go to the scrap heap? And the price, did that come from a competitive bid? And if it's a sole source, what is the sole source?
So it's called Houston Galveston. So the fire department can either go through an FCAM, so the trucks are bid out through the state, or Houston Galveston, so they do all that work for you. So that is done up front. We pay into that program in order to have that ability, so we don't have to. Obviously, we take a look at multiple different. We looked at Seagraves, which we have right now. We've looked at Pierce, and we're looking at Rosenbauer as well. So we still do our due diligence to make sure that we're getting the best value. But right now, in order to stay consistent with what we have in the station, we would like to stay with Pierce, just because that's what we're operating. As far as trade-in, by the time this truck is replaced, it's going to be close to 30 years. It will probably go to auction, and hopefully somebody from New York likes to pick up our trucks because we do our best that we can to try and keep them in good shape. The other option that we had discussed at the last meeting was investing some money to refurb it. So go top to bottom, replace hoses. We got an estimate on that. That was the $150,000 that we had requested at the last meeting. And we would move that truck because it is a pumper. It does have water on it. Move that up to the North Station as a backup ladder. However, if the town decides they don't want to do it, we will be back in probably 5 or 6 years to request funding to replace a 2006 pumper that we have. So, thank you.
Dan Dudkevitz, 130 Hockenham Road. My question is for the chief. The current machine you have that's inoperable. You're going to get that running for 4 years if this goes by, right? We're not going to be sitting here without anything, so you're going to get that thing running, correct?
That is the plan, sir.
Thank you.
Andy Morris, Friedman, 45 Roosevelt Street. 2 town meetings ago, we voted for the fire truck, and it went down in the general election. How much money is this fire truck that we're voting on now, how much more is it going to be than the fire truck would have been had it passed?
Yeah, it was 4 months ago. The price luckily did not increase. There were some projections that the cost was going to go up by $150,000 due to new EPA regulations. They're having a hard time building new motors. There's one motor available for most of these trucks now. It's a PACCAR motor. So as of right now, we've confirmed that $2 million figure will satisfy what we need to do to get that truck. That's less expensive than us coming and asking for a platform. I don't know if you're aware of a platform, but a platform is where we can have firefighters standing on the top, and they go up and down. This is a straight stick ladder, and the cost of a platform now is well over $2.5 million. So the last gentleman that spoke, his brother was actually on the build-out committee of this truck, and it was determined this was the best option. A straight stick in the town of Hadley, it allows us to get into really tight places, and it has everything on it.
But it's likely that... Okay. I was Russian jamming there for a second. It's likely that if this vote also goes down, when we do get a new fire truck, it's going to be even more expensive than the $2 million.
Historically, yes. If you look at the increase we've had since 2014, I think this is our last shot at that $2 million mark.
Okay. Do we know how many votes it lost by?
20.
20 votes. Okay. So in the history of fire trucks in Hadley, we pass them at town meeting, and then it loses in the general election. So please, get your neighbors to go out and vote yes for this if it passes tonight. We only need 20 more votes than we have last time, and the fire department deserves the best equipment. If my house is ever on fire, Mr. Moderator, I want the fire department to come with the best possible equipment to save my property and my life.
Moderator, here I am, over here. Hi. Just wanting to say that this is already going to be on the ballot, correct, Jessica? So when you go to vote for the annual elections on the 21st, this question will be on that ballot at that time. So there's not going to be another one for you to go to. So it's already going to be on there. If it doesn't pass tonight, it's still going to be on there, but it'll have to be ignored. But I'm hoping that you are going to pass it tonight, and you'll pass it at the annual election on the 21st.
Okay, so just as a clarification, here's some rumbling out there. It will be on the ballot even if it fails tonight, but it's going to be a toothless article to vote on. Doesn't matter what happens, because nothing's going to happen with it anyway. If it fails here but passes on the general vote, it's dead. No, wait a minute. Town council, let's get town council involved.
If it fails here, but it passes at the election, it still has to come back here for an appropriation. So that's authorizing the exclusion, but you would still have to come back here for the appropriation and borrowing.
Thank you for that. Sorry, folks. I'm gonna hold off on that for just a moment. Edwin. Edwin Matusco.
Edwin Matusco, 116 Stockbridge Street. I don't even know what to ask. This, let's face it, this is a huge amount of money. And to trust the fire department with buying a truck is not a good thing. Not a good thing at all. And then what is going to do to the budget of the town of Hadley? Is there room to put it in the...
Linda, could you give a quick summary, just like a one-sentence summary of what, if we pass this and the truck is purchased by the town, what happens to our tax rate?
No. Is there a place to put it? Yeah, are we going to have to build a new garage? Are we going to have
different
to...
question. Okay, different question.
Yeah.
All right. So, Mike, you coming up to answer that? Yes. Why don't you grab that microphone there?
At the last meeting, I explained we are not building any new fire stations. Thank you to Joyce for helping us with the new one. But yes, there's no need to increase the size of our doors, the station. It will fit with what we have now.
Michelle Morris Friedman, 45 Roosevelt. I supported this at Fall Town Meeting. I was talked into it. On the main point for me was the health and safety of the firefighters and of the people who are in a burning building. And if this saves one life, it's absolutely worth it.
Now, Jane, in which capacity are you speaking in? As a citizen or as a member of the Select Board?
I am Jane Nevin Smith, 16 Sunrise Drive. I speak as a citizen. I call the question.
Okay, question is called. No more discussion. Moving. Is there a second? Second. I got 4 seconds up here. All right, we're going to move directly to a vote. Conversation is over. We have to vote on it. I have to vote on it. Yes. All right. Correct. Thank you. All those in favor of calling the question requires a majority vote. That looks like a majority to me. You can put those down. All those opposed? Calling the question passes unanimously. All those in favor of Article 17, please raise your cards. Thank you. You can put those down. All those opposed? Article 17 passes unanimously. What's that? Oh, one against? One against. I apologize. I missed the one against. So 183 to 1. We have 184 people here tonight. Thank you all for coming out again. Article 18. Move the town appropriate $9 million to pay for the costs of designing and construction of 2 new water storage tanks to replace the 2 existing water storage tanks, including without limitation any ancillary work and the payment of all other costs incidental related thereto. And to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the Select Board, is authorized to borrow an amount pursuant to Chapter 44, Section 7 or Section 8 as applicable of general laws or any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the treasurer therefore. And further, the town does hereby accept Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 21CN, authorizing the Select Board to attribute a portion of the borrowing to be excluded as set forth here in the balance of the borrowing to be paid for from water rates. Do I have a second? Mr. Iser.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So this question is interesting. Pay attention. We are being asked to approve $9 million to hopefully pay $6,300,000. And the rationale behind that is we would apply for grant money, reduced interest rate loans, et cetera, from USDA to do this, and they will not talk to us until they know we are willing to play the game, or their game. So again, we are asking to approve $9 million so that we can pay approximately $6,300,000. And there are people here that will answer your questions, Linda being one of them, and then we have Scott McCarthy's here, the DPW director, and an engineer to talk about this stuff.
Any questions or comments concerning Article 18? Seeing none, we will move to a vote. Oh, wait. Got a presentation. Okay, we have a question also. We'll do the question first.
Hi, Brian Carroll, 26 Breckenridge Road. So my concern is this a concrete cost? So we see different costs going ballooning, the senior center, library, where they come millions of dollars over or hundreds of thousands of dollars. what it was estimated or come up with. So I'm just wondering where this amount came from.
Yeah, Scott and the engineer, please, I think you can answer that question much better than I can.
Good evening, Scott McCarthy, DPW Director. I'll ask Jeff Faulkner from Ty and Bond, our consulting engineer, to answer the question.
Can you move the mic up there? Yeah.
Scott McCarthy, Director of Public Works. I refer the question to Jeff Faulkner. He represents Ty and Bond. They are our consulting engineer on the project.
Is he a Hadley resident, Scott?
No, he is not.
Okay. I need a motion to... already got that? Oh, cool. Okay, all right. Got to get right on top of the mic.
Thank you. Jeff Faulkner from Ty and Bond. I can answer the question, or I can do a 5-minute presentation, which I think might answer a lot more questions.
Yeah, do the presentation, and then if the gentleman still doesn't feel like his question was answered, you can address it then.
Thank you. So the water department has 2 tanks. Picture there. They are in need of rehabilitation or replacement. The water department has realized this, and they have been in contact with DEP. DEP is aware of it, and they have actually recommended some of the rehabilitation efforts as well. Next slide. So the 2 tanks are Mount Warner and Mount Holyoke. Each are 1 million gallons. One was constructed in the 60s and one in the 70s. Very similar, welded steel tank, painted, and they are both on very small postage-size parcels. Next slide. So the town originally was thinking rehabilitation, but when they started looking into it, they realized it's a relatively complicated process. They have to keep the water system active while doing the rehabilitation. And the tank rehabilitation process has become significantly more expensive over the last 20 or so years, with regulations regarding no lead in paint, low VOC paint, and just the sheer volume of square footage of the tank, both inside and outside. The inside needs to be special coating that can be in contact with drinking water. So the water department reached out to us, and we did a conceptual memo report, and it looked like a replacement would be the best option for the 2 tanks. The recommended style is a little bit different than the current one, similar size and shape, but different material. It's a glass ground level, so same kind of shape, but glass fused to steel. It's like an enamel type material that looks similar to maybe your hot water tank in your basement. It doesn't require recoating. The existing tanks require recoating approximately every 20 years. There are some maintenance items that you'd need to do with it, but it's considered a low maintenance tank. And given that both parcels are very small, this style comes in panels that are fabricated at a factory off-site under controlled environment, and it's erected on-site in a relatively short amount of time. Next slide. So the project would consist of these items. It's more than a tank. It's getting rid of the old tank to put the new tank in the exact same spot. It's adding a mixing system so that the water doesn't have a layer of ice in the winter up top that scrapes the inside of the tank, extends the life of the tank. There's miscellaneous water main and site improvements that are required, security fencing, security appurtenances, instrumentation and controls, and also the provisions for maintaining the water system while construction is going on and the tank is not active. Next slide. So this is the slide with the costs. I know $9 million is a large number. It is at the conceptual stage, but you'll realize, we hope it's going to be less, but you'll realize a contingency line there that's 40%. That's a significant amount of contingency, but it's consistent as where we are at the level of the project, which is conceptual. If the project is approved, it moves forward, there'll be a design phase, and the numbers would be refined, and that contingency would drop percentage-wise as we proceed throughout the project. So the numbers, as you see it on the screen, Mount Warner has a $3 million number. Mount Holyoke has a $2.5 million number. The contingency, a little over $2 million. Engineering, close to $1 million. And then there's a line for administrative and legal costs and loan interest. So that adds up to the $9 million. And as mentioned previously, the hope is that the cost not only is lower than that, but that there's a grant component as well. Next slide. So what we're suggesting is the best option for the town to fund this project is to use the United States Department of Agriculture Rural Development Program, Water and Waste Program. I'm sure the town has used this in the past. It is kind of ideally set up for a community such as Hadley. It's a few points of information. It's for communities less than 10,000 population. There's both a loan component and a potential grant component. The loan terms, the typical loan terms is a 40-year loan. Normal municipal projects allow for a 20-year loan, but the USDA backing gives you the option or the primary use of a 40-year loan, which minimizes the annual payments on the payback. The USDA also funds the full project relative to beginning to end design. The other large water program for funding is the State Revolving Fund, and they do not fund the design component, so the town would have to self-fund the design if SRF was to be used. And as mentioned earlier, everyone would like to know what grant percentage the town is going to get, and I'd love to be here to tell you you're going to get this percent, but as mentioned, USDA doesn't allow or doesn't talk to us to that level of detail until the application is submitted, and the application can't be submitted until there's a positive town meeting vote. But from historical history purposes, percentages on the order of 20 to 40% grant are potentially there. Next slide. A little more information on the USDA program. So for the loan component, they offer a 3-tiered system, and that is also, which tier you're in is also part of the application review. The interest rates on the screen, 3.5, 2.75, and 2.125 are today's interest rates. They adjust those quarterly. So we're in a very relatively high interest rate market right now, but you can see the interest rates are still pretty reasonable through this program. Like I said, they change those quarterly, so these numbers will be good through June 30th of this year. If you were to move forward, what happens is they do a loan obligation, and you can you lock in rates at that point in time, and then you proceed with the project, and when the loan needs to be paid back, if the rates are lower at that point in time, they allow you to lock in at that lower interest rate. So I think that's a benefit as well. Next slide. So this is the schedule slide. The first item is passing at town meeting this evening. And that will allow the funding application to be finalized and submitted to the funding agency, which their state office is in Amherst, just a few miles away. Then it goes to them and it gets reviewed, and it depends on the timing of the funding of when they receive funds into their pools of money. So that timing isn't guaranteed, but we would expect spring and fall of this year that you'd know if the project is going to get obligated through that process. And that would allow the design to occur. And then this is a public project, so we'd need to go through a public bidding process to actually procure the tank vendor. And then with the hopes of having one tank, under one project, having one tank constructed fall of 2025 and the second tank in the spring of 2026. Is that the last line? Yep, that was the last line. Does that answer the question on the cost?
Sir, you had a question before. Does that answer your question? Okay, come on up to the mic.
So I'm a little confused because I'm pretty sure there's 2 tanks on Mount Warner, but anyway, so you're going to take down one tank. Is the one standing alone tank enough to service the town during the construction of the one tank, and while we're just using one?
Can you hear me? Yes, so yes, Mount Warner does have two tanks on it right now. One is empty, old, not used. It just wasn't demolished when it was put out of service. It's much smaller and not usable at this point in time. To the question of how things would work for operating the system during construction, the design would include hydraulic modeling efforts to determine if the other tank would be satisfactory while the other active tank is offline. But there are other options that could occur if that happens, such that the single tank is not adequate enough. There could be pressurization tanks to basically allow the treatment plant from not having to run 24/7 during construction.
Ma'am.
Lynn Latham, 11 Highland Circle. I have 2 questions, please.
A little closer to the microphone.
The first question is, if I understood the initial presentation correctly, it sounds to me as though you intend to replace the existing tanks with tanks of the same capacity?
Mr. Moderator, the initial indication is that the existing tanks' volumes are adequate for Hadley's water system, so they would be replaced with approximately the same volume.
I'm not necessarily thinking of meeting current demands, but there have certainly been proposals to the planning board for significant sized residential developments, and while none of those appear to be in the literal pipeline, that's not to say that something like that couldn't happen, and I am wondering if additional capacity would be advisable. The second question or second comment is, are there cost savings in doing these simultaneously, although yes, I understand sequentially, as opposed to now and in 5 years? Or are both tanks, even though they're not exactly the same age, are they similarly deteriorated and in need of replacement?
Mr. Moderator, there are efficiencies if 2 tanks are designed simultaneously, constructed not simultaneously, but under the same procurement process, single contractor, single process. There's cost savings, and there's also the cost savings of doing it now versus waiting 5 years. That second tank would be more expensive 5 years from now. And I guess with regard to a previous comment regarding the size of tanks, tanks of this nature have three main purposes. One is to handle maximum day flow during the summer, peak demand. It shaves off the peaks so that the pumps and the treatment plants don't have to be overused 24/7. So that's one reason for a tank. The other reason is for fighting fires, having extra storage capacity for fighting fires, and just so that there's equalization going on in all parts of town with the two tanks that are in the same zone. So with regard to determining whether additional volume is necessary, the initial work that we've done included some initial calculations indicating that the current volumes are in excess of current needs. So we could look further into what is expected for growth, but my expectation is that the two existing tanks at their two sizes, or their existing sizes, would be adequate.
Rick Thayer, 179 Hockenham Road. I'm just wondering about the lifespan of the new tanks.
Thank you. Yes, the lifespan of that style tank is on the order of 75 years. They haven't been around 75 years, so we don't know exactly if they would even go longer than that. But with the regular low maintenance effort, you can expect, on the order of 75 years.
Melinda Nielsen, 20 Middle Street. Mr. Faulkner, I thought I heard you say that this style of tank will not need resealing or repainting, and the slide says interior and exterior resealing every 20-year period, so what am I missing?
Can you say that again?
I thought I heard you say that this style of tank will not need resealing or repainting, and the slide says interior and exterior resealing every 20-year period, so straighten me out.
Yes, so the interior and exterior resealing that you see on this slide refers to the perimeter of each panel, the caulking, joint sealant, if you will, around each panel. That's the 20-year maintenance program for this style tank, rather than a painting application for every square inch of it.
Thank you.
Shel Horowitz, 16 Barstow Lane. I'm aware of the advantages of modular construction, but it does raise two questions for me. One is, we're talking about water here. What assurances do we have that these tanks will not leak at the junctions of the panels? And then the second question refers to the question that someone else asked about capacity. I remember, I live on the Barstow farm, and I remember several years ago that they took one of the manure tanks and added a layer to it. Is that an option to increase capacity by adding another row at some point?
Yes, Moderator, yes. This style tank is modular, as mentioned. It's basically multiple rings that go up and up and up, depending on the height you need. That style tank does allow for, over time, increasing the height of the tank. However, that impacts the hydraulics of the entire water system. These are atmospheric tanks, meaning they're open to venting. And if you were to raise the water higher and higher, then the entire water systems would be pressurized a little bit more and more for every ring.
So possible but difficult, in other words. But the other question was, what assurances do we have that they won't leak?
There's dozens and hundreds of current tanks of this style actively in Massachusetts. The water department actually visited one in Southampton that's approximately 30 years old, and it was in good condition. Everything can fail to some extent. One of the benefits of this style is that if there's a failure of one of those panels, that single panel can be removed and replaced without impacting the entire tank.
Thank you.
Jonah Bruger, 21 Norwalk Drive. I'm having some concerns about the size of the tanks myself, too. Most of it is because I'm hearing a lot about municipality size and future growth of the town, but my understanding is most of our municipal use is agricultural, and I haven't heard anything about the agricultural use being considered as part of this project.
So when we do evaluations on tank sizing, we look at the water used historically by water meters for every water taker. We look at population expectations and growth. We look at planning reports. We look at changes in the way a community is occurring, whether they're going from being a mill town to industrial or agricultural. These two tanks have been around 50s and 70s and have adequately had the volume of water that Hadley has needed. What I would suspect is that if more water is needed in Hadley, that the best option would not to be to make these tanks that much bigger, but to find another spot in town for a third tank.
Dan Dudkevitz, 130 Hockenham Road. This is going to make my water taste better. No, really, $9 million. $9 million. $9 million. You're going to make it better?
Though there was an article earlier to replace filters at the treatment plant.
And is this mandatory?
Is it mandatory?
This replacement thing.
The town is currently not under a consent order to do this, but Mass DEP they do what's called a sanitary survey every 3 years, I think. They visited Hadley on their 3-year cycle and have commented that tank rehabilitation is required.
Required. So, and what's their reasoning that we have to have a new tank?
They're not saying you need a new tank. They mentioned the word rehabilitation. Along with the tank, there's valves and pits and equipment and safety ladders and lots of other parts of the tank as well. That's some of the things that DEP has commented on.
So for $9 million, you can't guarantee my water's going to taste better.
That's not what this article's about.
That's what you think.
All right,
I can guarantee you can store water.
Pull myself together here. All righty. Any other questions or comments? Oh, hang on. Yep. Yes, sir.
Mark Dunn, 20 Hadley Place. If we didn't do this and a tank failed, how much more do you think we'd pay on an emergency basis to replace a tank?
So if a tank failed, you'd be under a water restrictions, water conservation. Presumably both tanks don't fail simultaneously, so you'd have the other tank. But you'd be under restrictions, and then you'd need to make emergency repairs for the tank that failed.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, sir.
Greg Wallach, 16 East Commerce Drive.
Microphone.
If the $2 million ladder truck requires Proposition 2.5, does this fall under Proposition 2.5?
Mr. Moderator, through you, you'll notice in the article that it does not require a debt exclusion at the poles, but under Chapter 59, Section 21CN, by authorizing this article, you are authorizing an exclusion for a portion of the debt because it's also paid for by water rates, and which is, as Linda described, how you paid for your wells in the past.
It's a portion thereof. Could you, what is the portion thereof?
It says, and further that the town does hereby authorize General Law, Chapter 59, Section 21CN, authorizing the Select Board to attribute 50% of the borrowing to be excluded as set forth therein, and 50% of the borrowing to be paid for from water rates.
So the water customers will pay 50% of the $9 million. Mr. Moderator?
Oh, Linda, I'm sorry.
Hi, Linda Sanderson, Treasurer. I believe the motion...
Microphone.
I think the motion you read was we changed the language to a portion thereof. Yeah, a portion thereof. Originally it was 50%, which is about right. But we didn't. But since we wanted to have it that the amount attributed to debt exclusion on the taxes stay the same as what it is for the wells, we wanted the select board to have some flexibility in moving more of a higher portion of it to the water rates, rather than have it completely 50-50, which would raise the taxes and the water rates. So we had to.
So what you're saying is you made a decision to charge the water users more as opposed to the town?
Yes.
Okay. All right, any other questions or comments? Seeing none, move to a vote. All those in favor of Article 18, please raise your cards. Thank you. You can put those down. All those opposed? 1. Motion passes 183 to 1. 182, excuse me. 182. Article 19, move the town appropriate the sum of $155,000 for the Hadley Drinking Water Asset Management Plan project, and further to pay for said appropriation, the treasurer, with approval of the select board, is authorized to borrow said amount further, that the select board shall be authorized to accept grants from the Mass DEP and Massachusetts Clean Water Trust to pay for said borrowing, and to pay the balance, $31,000, to be transferred from the Water Enterprise Fund. Do I have a second? Molly Keegan.
All right. So the purpose of the grant is to improve the existing maintenance practices to ensure the regular replacement of mechanical systems prior to failure. So basically what we're trying to do with this grant is make sure that we have an appropriate inventory of all of the existing equipment that will allow an appropriate replacement program to be developed. So again, just trying to get ahead of this and do a better job planning. So this will assist with acquiring computer software and hardware for data collection to track and organize asset management priorities much more efficiently. And it will also outline the annual cost effects on a rate charge system and line item in annual budgets when an asset management plan can be established.
Any questions or comments concerning Article 19? Seeing none, move to a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Thank you. You can put those down. All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Article 20, move the town appropriate $185,000 from free cash and ambulance receipts reserve, a special fund authorized by Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 5F, as in Foxtrot, for the purpose of receiving fees from the town ambulance service, such expended amounts to be funded from the special revenue fund by a vote of a future town meeting. Is there a second? Molly, you're up again.
Okay, so for those of you who were at the last town meeting, you may recall that we talked about starting up basic BLS ambulance service in Hadley, which has been accomplished. So at the last town meeting, we used some of the free cash as effectively seed money to get that program up and running. It has started. The fire department's been very successful at that. However, as with many things, there's timing or a lag that can occur. So we had the initial upfront cost to get the ambulance service running. The calls started. We are picking up call volume as planned, so that's been a good thing. But then there's a billing system, and if any of you know anything about how medical systems work, there's a real lag between when the billing is fully processed and then payments start coming in. So we are at the point now where we are just now recently receiving payments for runs that were made towards the end of last year. So we have, again, a kind of a ramp-up period. And what we're asking town meeting to do tonight is to appropriate $185,000 for additional funding for the BLS service. That will get us through the fall. And then at that point, we'll have a much better handle on the revenues coming in and can we reassess it at that time.
Any questions or comments on Article 20? Seeing none, move to a vote. All in favor of Article 20, please raise your cards. Thank you. You can put those down. All those opposed. Article 20 passes unanimously. Article 21, move the town authorize the treasurer to borrow $250,000 to fund the 25% match to improve resiliency and the stream reach that drains from Route 9 to East Street, including installing new culverts and related design and construction work, and further that the select board be authorized to accept a $1 million grant from the MVP Preparedness Program to pay for said work. Is there a second? Amy Parsons.
Hi. The town of Hadley was awarded a grant through the Municipal Vulnerability Program, which is the MVP Preparedness Program, to improve resiliency in a stream reach that drains from Route 9 all the way to East Street. The stream floods several times per year because of the two undersized culverts at East Street. The preliminary recommendation for this grant project is to upsize these culverts to reduce future flooding at an approximate cost of $1 million. To accomplish this, the town intends to apply for grant funding with the MVP program. So the program has a 25% match requirement. So the purpose of this article is to request funding of the 25%, which is the $250,000, to accomplish and to accommodate the required match. This is a competitive grant, and it may not be funded. The cash match will be contingent upon favorable award of grant funding. There are some slides, and I believe there's also an engineer here from CEI to provide the details on this.
And here they are. Gentlemen, you have the floor.
Yep. That was good. Okay. Yeah, my name's Nick Shaw. I work for CEI. I'm one of the designers for this project. So as you can see, these are the two existing culverts located on East Street. 135 East Street, that culvert kind of crosses the entire street. And then the one at 136 just crosses the driveway. As you can see right now, both culverts are in pretty poor condition and under, even like a rainstorm that occurs once every 2 years. These tend to flood pretty bad. Scott may be able to speak to that effect of what like existing conditions are like on a, oh, thank you. You may be able to speak to like what it's like on a day-to-day basis, because I'm sure you've seen it, driving around town. You can go to the next slide. So what we're proposing is to eliminate both these current culverts and try to reduce some of the flooding risk, and then put in a larger span culvert that spans across the entirety of East Street. The newer span culvert would be a 9.5-foot wide culvert by about 6.5 feet tall, and basically what it would do would eliminate any sort of overtopping of the road, and it would be able to handle a storm event of one that occurs maybe once every 50 years or even bigger than that, without any sort of flooding. And then the road would be shut down during construction. We would also be rehabilitating the utilities within the roadway that kind of cross the existing culverts, and basically bring back everything to how it was prior to construction. So you can go to the next slide. So we submitted an application for MVP grant funding, which basically comes from the state of Massachusetts. The expected grant funding from this application is around $850,000 if awarded. Granted, that was just submitted back in April 26th. The expected town cash match for final engineering and construction is only $80,000.
Any questions or comments?
Edwin Matusko, 116 Stockbridge Street. Where are you going to put this water? Because if it's going to go into a ditch requires maintenance. You have to maintain it. So if it's going to just dump out onto a field, that's not a good thing. Where's the water going to go?
So I can speak to that. So during construction, there will be temporary piping that will continue the stream channel around the construction site. And then eventually, once the culvert, the new culvert is constructed, then that temporary piping will be removed, and then the stream will be allowed to flow naturally.
Where do you go now?
Currently, right now, it just goes through the deteriorated culverts that are causing like a backup and causing flooding. Yeah.
So the water is generated, basically it starts at Route 9, Nashua, Pine Hill area, and it flows through the Bem farm and then the Nabala farm, and then crosses East Street and continues behind the few residents there, crosses over Bay Road and goes between the farm there, and then crosses Middle Street to the river. The problem with this flow is, from their study, the crossing at East Street, that it's so bad it won't let the water continue to the river at Middle Street. So it continues backing up through the Nabala farm and the Bem farm all the way back to Route 9.
I get that. I get that. I understand that. Where's the water going to go after 5 years from now? Are you going to maintain the water, the ditch? Because a ditch might need maintenance every 2 weeks, might need maintenance once every 20 years. We don't know it. And are you going to be able to provide it?
So the answer to that question is yes. We provide maintenance to the ditches that we own and we have right-of-ways on. I am working with Carolyn, the town administrator, right now to come up with a better plan for those ditches. It's a very costly and time-consuming thing for us to do. They get mowed every year, and any sediment that needs to be removed is done according to the Conservation Commission rules and regulations. So we do the maintenance of those ditches. Yes, I will say that, and we maintain the ditches the best possible manner that we can with the tools and equipment that we own.
Any other questions or comments?
Greg Wallach, 16 East Commons Drive. It says expected town cash match $80,000. So why does it say provide up to $250,000?
Yeah. So I believe I can speak to that. I believe
We're getting an answer. Oh, go
okay,
ahead.
sorry.
Amy, have you got that?
You have to see if an answer. Give an answer. Mr. Moderator. He has an answer.
You have an answer? Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you had an answer. I apologize.
Yeah, I honestly, I believe that may just be a typo. So when the application was first, or when we first did like kind of a cost estimate, we didn't realize that the grant may be giving a lot more than what we thought. And that's where the original 250 came from. But with the grant now being increased to $850,000, you know, we're expecting the town will only need to provide 80 grand.
Okay. So I need a motion. Hang on, little side chat here.
So can I make that motion?
Yeah, so if you get more money, you're not going to borrow that much. Right.
Okay, town council has informed us that, and please correct me if I'm wrong, in the article, we talk about potentially borrowing up to $250,000. If it works out to be $80,000, then it's $80,000. But we have the potential, if necessary, based on other information, that if we need up to $250,000, we have approval for that. But based upon the numbers that you provided in grant matching, it's more realistically to be $80,000.
It'd be very rare.
Microphone.
I would say it'd be very unlikely that you guys would have to provide the full 250. We're leaning way more towards the 80,000.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, move to a vote. All those in favor of Article 21. Thank you. You can put your cards down. Those opposed? Okay, 183 to 1. Motion passes. 2 articles left. Thank you for staying here. What's that? 182 to 1. I had a wrong count on total people. All right, Article 2. Motion to accept provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 41C as in Charlie, or take any action relative thereon. Do I have a second? Dan. There we go.
Hi.
Get right on top of the microphone,
Yep.
Dan.
Hi. The Board of Assessors is asking you to adopt Clause 41C. Currently, we offer the senior tax exemption, Clause 41, which no one can qualify for. The asset limit for Clause 41 is $17,000 if single and $20,000. It's $17,000 if single and $20,000 if married. The asset limit includes the value of the home. We have not granted a Clause 41 exemption in a very long time. Clause 41C, the asset limits go to $40,000 if single and $55,000 if married, and do not include the value of the home, unless it's more than a 4-family home, and only the units that provide income would be included. It also changes income limits from $11,600 if single and $15,400 if married, to $18,600 if single and $23,480 if married.
So basically, you're expanding the group of people that can take advantage of the senior program.
Yeah, right now, we don't think anybody, I don't recall my board granting a Clause 41 since I've been here.
Okay.
And we're hoping that there would be a few seniors out there that might be eligible to get a $500 tax exemption.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Jonah Berger, 21 Norwalk Drive. Those of us who aren't familiar with Mass General Law off the top of our head, are these hard-coded numbers, or do these progress with inflation? So presumably, when I can use them, I could actually use them.
Right now, Clause 41C, this is locked in.
Okay.
There is 41 Clause 41C, the numbers are locked in. There are other options out there that could be adopted that are indexed for inflation. And right now, under the Governor's Empowerment Act, there's a local senior exemption option that's being proposed that would allow for even more liberal limits.
Thank you.
Edwin Matusko, 116 Stockbridge Street. When is this going to take effect?
If passed tonight, this would start with the tax year that starts July 1st.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, move to a vote. All in favor, please raise your cards. Excellent. You can put those down. All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Last article. Thank you all for bearing with us. All right. Where's the motion in here?
Amend the zoning bylaws printed in the warrant.
Okay, amend the zoning bylaws as printed in the warrant. I'm going to call on Jim, and if you can state your name and your capacity, please. You can just turn around right there. Oh, yeah, I'm looking. So moved. Yeah, there's not, okay, there's, yeah, I don't see it. There's no motion written in my notes here, so I think you're making a motion, correct?
Yes, I just made a, yes, move the question. I mean,
Wait,
no.
No, we're not moving it,
Motion, make a motion.
All right, so there's a motion, there's a second. Okay, go for it, Jim.
Yeah. Okay, the planning board unanimously recommends this article, and I have two minor amendments. One is to amend section 28.5.3.3, it's on page 11 of the warrant, and add the word protection after the word aquifer in the last sentence of this section so that it now reads Aquifer Protection District Overlay Zones. It's just a formality to formally call the correct name of the zone.
Is there a second? Any comments regarding the changing or the amendment? There's only the amendment right now that we're voting on. Seeing none, all in favor of the amendment, signify raising your cards. Thank you. Those opposed, raise your cards. The amendment passes unanimously. Move ahead, Jim.
And
Yep,
the other
we
one,
need the amendment.
I'll have to write this one up yet, but in the definition section, under amend definition, on page 1. Oh, yeah, page 8 of the warrant.
Not page 8.
Under solar energy system, after the words in the very last sentence, after service and access roads, it should be a period, and energy should be capitalized. It's a technicality, but the way it reads is, the whole thing, it doesn't except mention in 28, so if you put it all together, you can see where I'm getting at. It's grammatical error.
Is there a second? All those in favor, please raise your cards. Thank you. You can put them down. All those opposed. And motion passes unanimously for the amendment. Can I have it, Jim?
Now to get to the articles.
I will write that one up. Jim owes it to you.
I just saw that. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Although the bylaw is lengthy and kind of appears daunting, the amendment or the warrant, the article in the warrant is all one writing. But if you took a second handout that was at the table, only the one that is in red is what is new. Most of section 28 already exists in the zone bylaw regarding the solar systems. The stuff in red that was in the handout is what's new, and that really pertains to the energy storage system or battery storage. There's a lot of concern and comments, well, do we really need to do this? Under Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 3, and I quote, it reads, "No zoning ordinance or bylaw shall prohibit or unreasonably regulate the installation of solar energy systems or the building of structures that facilitate the collection of solar energy except where necessary to protect the public health, safety, or welfare." Apparently our existing bylaw prohibits standalone energy systems, but allows them in conjunction with a solar array. Now, we can debate that all day long, whether that's good or bad, or whether it's true or not true. But the bottom line is, the Attorney General has repeatedly turned down several zone bylaws in the state that prohibit or unreasonably regulate energy storage. If ours indeed does prohibit that, could sue the town, come in, put in an energy storage system, and the town would not have a lot of regulation on how it's installed. The bylaw in front of you now will give direction on how battery systems should be installed, whether they're with a solar array or a standalone. This only applies to large capacity systems, anything over 150 kilowatt. There are people in town that may have a solar system or even a battery storage system. Those wouldn't be regulated by this bylaw. That's still going to be controlled by the fire department and the building code and electric code, et cetera. The bylaw in front of you will say that it gives conditions on how to put a system, on how to put battery storage in. It's going to have spill containment. It's going to have a fire hydrant nearby. It's going to have fire protection controls. It's going to be 300 feet away from a residence in use, and there's a whole bunch of other things in the bylaw. I'm not going to read every single one, it'll drive you nuts. So basically, what we're trying to do is provide conditions and guidance to protect the town if somebody wants to put in a battery storage system. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's permitted in the existing ag residential areas and industrial, and not allowed in the business zones, and it's prohibited in the Aquifer Protection District, which is a big one because there's a lot of concern about not so much spills, the batteries don't spill, but if there's a fire and you go to put the fire out, now you got all these things spilling over, and it could be, not good.
Any questions or comments concerning this article? Oh, wait a minute. Go ahead, Bill.
Also from the planning board, Jennifer has a slide up showing what is in the Aquifer Protection District and what is not in the Aquifer Protection District.
Looks like most of it's the mountain range.
And that's a big hole in the middle of the donut. That is all Aquifer Protection Overlay District. So we're really talking about battery storage being restricted to areas around here. Because this is a complex overlay, basically yellow is outside of the Aquifer Protection Overlay District. Red and green, and this is a little bit of cross-hatching up there too, are all in the Aquifer Protection Overlay District, and standalone battery energy storage systems would not be allowed there.
Without this bylaw, are they allowed there?
Without this bylaw, we have no way of restricting them from there. So yes, if someone were to challenge the definition that prior town council had provided us with, to the effect that battery-only storage systems are not covered by our solar bylaw, if someone chose to challenge that, they could put something in pretty much anywhere that they wanted.
Okay.
Shel Horowitz, 16 Barstow Lane, speaking for what I hope will be the last time tonight. I said I hope. I happen to know some things about the solar industry and green business in general. 4 of my books are actually about how those companies can do their marketing. I think this bylaw is exceptionally well drafted, and I will vote for it regardless of the answer to my question, but I'm hoping, I don't know if Chief Spanknable is still in the room, but if he is, I would love to hear him talk about whether Hadley is equipped and prepared for something like a lithium fire.
Thank
Thank you. It's a good question. I would like to thank the planning board because they were very proactive with it. Jim and I sat down numerous times. I actually met with the state fire marshal, and we actually put together, we're actually the first community, like communities around us were looking at us for how we were going to protect these structures. There's actually one right now at the campus at UMass next to the central heating plant. At that time, there was no protection in it other than a clean agent that lasts maybe 20 minutes. As you all know, lithium batteries are self-sustaining. They create their own oxygen. They create their own explosive gas. So working with the state fire marshal, we have required it as part of the bylaw that a prescriptive sprinkler system, dry sprinkler system, be installed in each one of them. And they are required to actually pipe 50 feet away with a supply line, which we would be able to hook our pumper trucks up to and fill the cabinet with water continuously to try and protect the surrounding cells. So there could be 50 cells per block, and the theory is if we can protect that one cell, we should be able to keep it from spreading cell to cell. And they also have required that a fire hydrant be installed within 300 feet, which would be more than adequate for us. And again, thank you.
And if such a facility is built, will you be doing any kind of special training for your crew?
We actually have already begun that. We started that when this whole, basically NFPA 855 was adopted, so we have actually already been training. Our bigger concern right now is the smaller lithium batteries. There have been extensive fires throughout New York. New York is coming up with all sorts of new regulations and requirements just because these smaller batteries are the problems, are the ones that are blowing up in people's bedrooms, your laptops, all these new scooters and everything. So those are the ones we're more concerned of. The solar companies that are putting these together have been very proactive with us. And normally they're in an area that's pretty secluded, but the intent is not to have it spread. If we have a dry summer, we don't need everybody's hay fields burning up, and then also all the solar panels that are around it. So thank you
That is
again.
very reassuring. Thank you.
Edwin Matusko, 116 Stockbridge Street. When does this take effect? Right away? When does this take effect, this bylaw? Right away or no?
As soon as the Attorney General approves it, after there's a procedure. We
Right.
vote tonight to approve it. The town clerk submits stuff to the Attorney General, which typically takes up to 90 days. They've got to respond. And the theoretical date of effect would be tonight.
Okay, good. Thank you. I appreciate it.
That's your power.
Alan Weinberg, 108 Bay Road. I understand that and appreciate the planning board's work on the safety and the fire protection and the environmental components of this. What I don't see is, or I don't understand, is how do you control how big these things are? What do they look like?
A battery storage unit basically looks like a container of a tractor-trailer. And I don't know how big a container, there's a picture right there.
Okay.
Okay. I don't know how much, if you would, kilowatts are in each container, but from what I understand, a 5 megawatt system would approximately be somewhere between 6 and 10 containers.
How high would they be? Is there?
I'm gonna guess. I don't know this for a fact. Roughly, maybe 8 to 10 feet.
So no 5-story barrage storage facilities?
Basically, it looks like a tractor-trailer box sitting on a concrete pad.
Okay, that's fine. And can you, in your bylaw, when you review the site plan, can you say, no, that's too high, takes up too much space?
I can't imagine a storage container of, say, 10 feet being too high. It's more, we don't know. We haven't had an application for one, but they're pretty mundane as far as the height of these. It's not like they're 30 or 40 feet high. They're single containers, typically sitting on a concrete pad, but there's multiple containers in like a little block, depending on how much power they're storing. And then there's all the ancillary equipment of, transformers, inverters, and electronic stuff like that.
Okay, thank you.
Tony Fiden, Cold Spring Lane. I want to talk about, there's been a lot of discussion with the planning board about the first part, where it says you can't prohibit, but not the last part where it says you can prohibit except where necessary to protect health, public health, safety, or welfare. Now let's talk about it's a safety issue, because are these safe? That's the question. And I think the answer is no, that they're not safe. All you need to do is you just need to go online and look, do a little research, and you see that they're not safe at all. All over the country, there have been explosions, fires. Last summer alone, there were 3 major events, 4 actually, in New York State, just a few hundred miles from here, which required evacuations. These were major issues. And after those 4 major events, the governor of New York decided to have a safety conference and look at the safety of these things. So, no, they're not safe at all. And actually, during the planning board process, the planning board never said they were safe. And during the meetings, members of the board compared this to potential to Chernobyl, Love Canal, and 3 Mile Island. That's the board that did this. And at one point, a woman during the public hearing asked, since she was near one of the proposed facilities, what would happen if there was an explosion? Would my house be taken out? And the answer from the board was, well, we have no way of knowing anything about that. So the issue of safety is the main factor, because we can regulate because of safety, and that's what we're here for. Now the problem, I understand that we don't want to get sued, we want to come up with something, but what they came up with was to include this in the not in the aquifer, in the industrial, and also in the residential agricultural. I understand you want to protect the aquifer, you want to protect the water, but farmland is also important, agriculture. No farmland, no Hadley. So, in the residential, that's people's houses, that's people's lives. So, by saying it's too dangerous for the aquifer, you've admitted that it's not safe. If it's not safe for the aquifer, it's not safe for the residents, it's not safe for the farmland. So, I think respectfully, the planning board was a little misguided with this effort and came up with something that doesn't really make sense. But again, if it's not safe enough for the aquifer, it's not safe enough for the residents. It's not safe enough for the farmland.
I'll be perfectly blunt with you. I would say the majority of the planning board is 100% in agreement with you. However, the state has said, Mass General laws, like I said, you cannot prohibit and you can't unreasonably regulate. We are trying to reasonably regulate and not prohibit. The unanimous decision of the planning board, I probably should have said, reluctantly recommends this article. We're not recommending this article because we think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. We don't. But if we don't do something, we could be way up the creek without the old proverbial paddle.
Hi, Brian Carroll, 26 Breckenridge Road. So I just want to throw out one thing is you have a setback for residents. Personally, I don't know about anybody else, I'm a grandfather, got kids in town. I would like to see a setback from playgrounds and schools, if that was a possibility to make an amendment to do that. I think those 2 areas, to keep it away from kids, would be a great thing, but thank you.
I'm not sure, that's a question for town council. We are requiring a 300-foot setback from a residence. Could we amend, or would that be too much of a change to add playgrounds and stuff like that to it?
I don't think we necessarily need to, because most of the aquifer protection district.
Oh, that's right, yeah. Most of the aquifer protection district includes the schools and all the playgrounds and the playgrounds up on off of Breckenridge Road are already in the aquifer.
Sir, or Andy? Andy.
Andy Morris Friedman, 45 Roosevelt Street. Mr. Moderator, I have several friends in town who are opposed to these kind of battery storage systems and have urged me to vote no on this bylaw. But as I understand it, voting no tonight will not keep these battery systems out of Hadley. Actually, just the reverse. People who want to build these battery systems will be able to do whatever they want, wherever they want, and the planning board can't do anything to regulate them. So if you oppose these kind of battery systems, you should vote yes on this bylaw, and that will help us regulate the systems that you are afraid of. So I urge people to vote yes.
It's kind of a strange situation, but you got a point there.
Sir.
Mark Dunn, 20 Hadley Place, and also on the planning board. Another thing that would protect kind of an invisible, on these overlays, deterrent to these projects is I believe they are looking for particular three-phase branches to tie into. And I think a lot of that yellow area may not have three-phase power. So we haven't told them they can't go there, but the utility company, okay, all right.
Okay.
I just wanted to clarify.
Name and address, I'm sorry.
Michael Doctor, 113 Bay Road. If you do a little Google search, as I just did, about the fires in New York, they are all related to mopeds and small charging systems that have been mostly hacked in somebody's apartment. We are not talking about the kinds of facilities that you're talking about, which are, in this case, highly regulated with sprinkler systems. And that's what this regulation is about, is to try to design these things so that they are as safe as possible. I would also like to say that we are confronting a major disaster with climate change right now. And these batteries are an essential part of storing solar and wind energy when it is abundant, so that it can be used when the sun's not shining and the wind is not blowing. And that's why these batteries are being proposed, and it's why we need to regulate them in a way that is going to be as safe as possible, because this is what we need to be doing, unfortunately. Thank you.
Shell Horowitz, 16 Barstow Lane. The gentleman behind me in line raised some very good points, and I agree with all of them, and that's why I'm going to be voting for this, because without it, we are in basically, I think most people in this room are familiar with Chapter 40B, the state law that allows some developer to come in here with some god-awful project that's completely inappropriate if we slip below 10% affordability in town. Not having this law in place is giving us Chapter 40B for battery storage. Some developer is going to come in with some cockamamie scheme that makes absolutely no sense, except it's going to put money in their pocket, and we're going to have to swallow it because we have no law regulating it. So because I agree with the gentleman behind me, I'm voting for this.
Well, I made my statement about the current law. There is one solution, and this is the solution that wasn't voted on by the planning board, but it seemed to be the consensus throughout their deliberations. The discussion was, why not have this only in the industrial zone? And the answer, or the problem that was brought up by the board was, well, it's not big enough where it might not fit what some of the developers are doing. My response to that was that's not really our problem. We have an industrial zone that is ample size. We can tailor this to the industrial zone, which is actually the infrastructure is there for a much safer prospect, and then it would it may get challenged. Anything we may do may get challenged here. And I'm tired of being, everything we do is afraid because we're afraid the governor's not going to like us. We just have to stop that. The governor's going to do what the governor's going to do. They've been challenged all over the place. Why are we You know, we just can't keep doing things out of fear. And as one of the gentlemen said during the public hearings, Sean Mackett, he said, sometimes you have to stand up for what you believe in and fight for it if it comes to that. So that's just a prelude for an amendment which would change section 28.5.3.3 districts, and it would now read, large-scale ground-mounted solar energy systems shall only be located in the industrial district. Large capacity energy storage systems shall only be permitted in the industrial district. However, they are prohibited in the aquifer district overlay zone. So this amendment, you know, I prefer not to have these, but if we're going to have them, let's have them in the industrial district, which is what pretty much every member said that they would prefer if they could. So.
Yeah, I think it's too substantive. I think it's out of scope because it's a zoning article. So that would have had to been changed because you're taking rights away because people thought that it was going to be allowed in the district, right? So it's out of order. It's out of scope. Correct.
In talking to town council recommends that we not accept the amendment because it is too constraining and actually changes a great deal of the warrant article from what people read when it was posted for public acknowledgement and posted online as well. So unfortunately, the amendment is not recognized.
Bill Dwyer, Planning Board. I would also mention that the portion of the aquifer, the portion of the industrial district that is not in the aquifer is commercially unreasonable. It's literally a postage stamp. So as a practical matter, that's not the way to go. And we also do want to be mindful, when we talk about farmland, we are talking about land owned by farmers, some of whom have chosen in Hadley to grow solar rather than potatoes this year. So we are not, and a lot of the farmland, especially the farmland up in North Hadley, is in APR, which does not support solar anyway, but be that as it may, by extending it to the agricultural residential district, we are offering farmers, farmland owners, an alternative for their cash crop needs.
Rick Thayer, 179 Hockenham Road. I'd like to call the question.
Motioned and seconded. Going to move to a vote. All those in favor of calling the question, please raise your card. Thank you. Those opposed? Motion to call the question passes 181 to 2. We're going to move to a vote. The amendment has been ruled outside the scope of the article by town council, so we're not going to vote on the amendment. Alrighty, so I want to make sure I get this right. Article 23, all in favor of Article 23, please raise your card. Thank you. You can put them down. All those opposed to Article 23. 2, 3. Article 3 passes 180 to 3. I would ask that you please not go anywhere right now. I have two things that I would like to do. Reminder, Hadley Mothers Club Candidates Night is May 13th at 6:30 here. And in a first, I would like to invite Joyce Chungalo up here to close the meeting. Since it is her last meeting, I think it's only appropriate. It's a big gavel. All you do is ask for a motion to close the meeting, and then you ask for a second, and then all in favor say aye.
Okay. I'd like to entertain a motion to dissolve the meeting. Is there a second? Good night, everybody. Are you driving home? I am. It's been a long week. We're good?